Hey, this is Tim DeLaughter from the Polyphonic Spree and Tripping Daisy, and you're listening to the Son of a Blitch podcast.
Hey Tim, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure. Listen, I've been a longtime fan of your music, all the different bands you played in, all the different art you put out there, and I really wanted to kind of explore all that. But I figured for the listeners who may not be fully familiar with, your, Rolodex of art that you've put out, can we maybe start at the beginning, talk about a little bit of where you're from, and maybe, rewind down to that day at Blakewood Elementary that really kind of spawned your love and desire to play music live and kind of take this and run with it for your life?
Sure. Well, I'm born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I was born in Oak Cliff, Texas, which is it's in Dallas, but it's right on the edge. It's in the Dallas area, but a little small town. Um, Born there and gosh, you brought up Lakewood Elementary. That is kind of like where it all started. Although, my aunt was a musician. She was in an all-girl band when I was a little kid, toddler, kind of walking around and finding my way. And I'd sit in on she'd be babysitting me, and I'd sit in the middle of their band practices, these girls rocking out. And the name of their band was Hot Ice, which was a trip. But so I think it came from that, and also from my grandmother who sang in the choir. My grandfather was a preacher, and she sang up there hymns every day. I'd be at church with her on, Wednesdays and Sundays, and um, basically being there with her singing. So it's like music was kind of always around. My dad was always singing, and but yeah, I like one day I was in my music class at Lakewood, third grade, and my music teacher, Miss Simons, um, came in, and this was completely out of the blue and not characteristic of her at all. She was a very staunch, kind of real dry, conservative woman. And she goes, "We're just going to listen to a record today." And she put this record up on the chalkboard, and it was um, I didn't know at the time, but it eventually, after it played, was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. It was the Trilogy record. And she goes, "We're just going to listen to this record." And so she puts this record on, and I'd never heard music like that before. And it just blew my mind. I remember it to this day. It was so vivid. And I'm just looking at this album cover as I'm listening to this music. And it's this profile of these three dudes with long hair. And I'm like, that's all I could see. That's all I knew about him was the picture of the cover and then listening to it. And I don't know, but it just had a profound effect. And I was like, I remember going, this is what I want to do. I want to make music. And a friend of mine in the class, his dad had a Les Paul, and he said, "Why don't we start a band?" So he went over, asked his dad to borrow his guitar, and we went over to his house, and I would just kind of play drums on books, school books in the bedroom. And then um, we had told our music teacher, we wrote a song called Sing Along with My Tambourine. We told our music teacher, "Hey, we'd like to come in and play this song that we've written." And she said, "Yeah." So I went and got some ice cream buckets from the Baskin Robbins, and I built myself a drum kit. And I had one, they were painted black and white, and I bolted them together and had these X's on them where I hit them. And it was like my drum kit. And we played for the class, and the class loved it. And everyone was clapping. I was like, "This is it, man. This is what I'm going to do." And the rest is history. And I ended up doing that. I moved to Duncanville, and I met a dude there that was, playing Rolling Stones songs all the time. And so he and I started a band. My dad bought me a drum set. It was a 1968 Ludwig Blue Sparkle drum kit. And we played Stones covers, and I was the drummer for that band. He sang. And then I eventually got into this metal band called Saint, where I was playing drums. And then one day I come over there just to visit my friend Kendall, and who played guitar in the band. And as I'm approaching the garage, I'm hearing the band play, and I'm like, but I'm not in there. And I hear the drums. I'm like, what's going on, man? And I kind of looked through a little sliver of the glass that was painted, but I could see a little crack, and I saw this dude in there playing a double bass Ludwig, uh, chrome kit, huge kit, and he's just killing it. And I'm going, oh my! My heart dropped. I just turned my back to the garage and slid down and sat on my ass, and I was crying, man. And the band had stopped, unbeknownst to me. I was just in complete bewilderment. And Kendall comes around, he sees me. They were coming out for a break. And he's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, what's going on, man? Like, what are you doing? Like, how could you do this? He's like, Tim, he just, he's got a great kit. He's really good. I had a blue sparkle kit, like a killer, like today it's great, but it didn't really scream of like heavy metal, and it just didn't look the part. And Joey had this double bass Ludwig, but Kendall goes, man, why don't you try singing? I'm not really good at singing, and you've got a good voice, and maybe why don't you try to be the singer? And I'm kind of like drying my eyes a little bit. I'm like, all right, I guess I could do that. And I get in there and I knew the songs. And so I just started singing, and it just like a duck to water, man. I just like, wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I became the singer of that band. And then it became another band called Regency. And then I took a break from music, and yeah, but yeah, that's how it all started.
So then how did Tripping Daisy form? I believe I heard a story. It was your girlfriend at the time, now wife, kind of introduced you to Wes, and then it kind of formed the ethers of all the artists kind of came together. But what year was that? And kind of walk me through the beginning stages of that.
So, I took some time, moved to California when I was 18, and just kind of bummed around with a friend, Scott Berman, who eventually became the guy that did all the visuals for Tripping Daisy. Um, and then I came back from California, and then I moved to Colorado. I lived in Crested Butte, and I worked at a ski resort there, at Crested Butte Ski Resort. And I had to ski to work every day. And I had a friend there, Stephen Burrill, who we lived up there together. He played guitar, and Stephen and I would always kind of jam together. He would play, and I would just improvise lyrics and melody and sing. And so there was an open mic in town in Crested Butte. And we were like, dude, let's just go up there and do this thing. And we didn't really know what we were going to do. And we get up on the stage, and place is packed. It's a black box theater there in Crested Butte in the town. And I said, just play whatever, man. I'll just make it up and see what happens. And so he started playing, and I closed my eyes and just started singing about what I was seeing and hearing, and just tuned everything out. I was in my own world. And I remember we finished the song, and I opened my eyes, and it was like quiet. And then all of a sudden the whole place erupted. It was like, holy shit. It was like everyone stood up, they were applauding, and like it was like crazy, screaming, whistling, or like I'm looking at him, he's smiling at me. I'm looking at him, go, oh my God. And for me, it was like, what am I doing? I know what I need to be doing. I need to get back. I want to start a band. And it was so clear like that. It's literally on that stage listening to everyone applaud. That's when I knew that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've got to get out there. I've got to start a band and get going. So I moved back to Dallas soon after that. And Julie and I lived together on Ross Avenue in Dallas. And I lived in an area that was not, it was at the time, it was a really shady area. Now it's all been gentrified, and it's, great around here. But back then it was kind of drug houses, and a lot of musicians and artists live here. So I'd bounce around and try to meet as many artists as possible. I jammed with, Kenny Withrow was in New Bohemians. He went to school at Lakewood. So I knew Kenny from back in elementary school. And he was playing music back then. And so whenever he would have a jam, he and I would always go to his place and jam and meet different musicians. And there was always things like that going on going on here in Dallas. And we just have these all night jams with different people from Fever and the Funk House. So would jam with them. And then other musicians within our collective orbit would just get together and party and then have these all night jams where people would just switch off on instruments. So I got to meet people along the way. And Julie was going to acting school at Katie's studio and she met Wes Bergeron. And she goes, this guy plays guitar. I think you might, you know, like it. Just try it out, you know? So Wes and I met up and I said, just play something because I just kind of make things up. So just kind of play and I'll see if I can kind of contribute, you know, and see if we can get some chemistry going. So he just starts to play something and literally we just start writing songs like right then. I just start singing and putting the melody out there. He's looking at me going, where are you getting this from? And I'm like, from you. I'm sitting there just kind of like reflecting off of what you're doing. And we could he and I, I'd never had such like a chemistry of like arrangement. Because when you're improvising, it's like he's got to be able to listen to you to where you're going, that he knows he's kind of putting out there what's going to inspire me to respond. And then we both have to meet in the same spot to ride together. Like, okay, so now he's now going to a chorus here and now we've got it. There's a verse, there's a chorus. I know what he's doing. I'm going to go back to the beginning to like a verse. And then I would fill in the part. And then I would change the melody a little bit for like a bridge, and he would change accordingly in the same key structure. And then now it's time to go back to a chorus or wherever it felt like it should need to go. And it was like that. It was so connected. And we both just looked at it and go, holy shit, man, this is it. Great. Fuck. Do you know anybody, a bass player? And he goes, I know this guy at North Texas that I'm in school with. His name's Mark Pirro. He plays bass. And I'm like, cool, get him over here. And we had Jeff Balk was the first drummer of Tripping Daisy. And he's the first person I met at a jam around here in the neighborhood in Dallas. And so Jeff and I hooked up. Jeff was great, real fluid, organic drummer, was a lot like me as far as improvising. And so Jeff was first drummer. Wes came along. Wes knew Mark. Mark came over and we jammed with Mark. And it was the same way. Mark just kind of like picked up with us because the songwriting was such an organic thing. And you have to be able to kind of follow that. And Mark was the same way, he kind of picked right up and jumped in. And before we knew it, we had this band and it happened really fast. And I told you earlier about my friend Scott Berman, who I live with in California. I called him up, said, man, I want to have visuals for this band, kind of reminiscent of like the Fillmore Light Show.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out, I'm a dumpster diver, and I went out and found some slides that had been ruined by the elements of sun and shit that had been on it. There was a house that flooded and these slides got ruined, but they looked really cool. They were real psychedelic. So he went and got a slide projector from Goodwill and that was our first show. We played an open mic at Club Dada here in Dallas. And it was the same thing. We only had 8 songs and the place went crazy, so much so that we just ended up playing our songs over again because it just went really well. And one of the owners of Trees, the biggest venue around in Dallas at the time, across the street, was over there, just happened to be over there and offered us a Thursday night at Trees that was only our first show. And all we had was those 8 songs. And we're like, yeah, okay. Well, Thursday night there blew up and the band literally just started to take off. It was like nothing. And I've been around here. I never seen anything like it. The way that people responded to Tripping Daisy in this town was nuts, man. It was just an immediate embrace, and it almost seems like it happened overnight because it kind of did. And it was nuts. We weren't even prepared for the amount of like response we were getting. We were so young and green as far as our songs. And like we only had 8 of them. And that became a regular thing where we would repeat songs. But then that's also where we started to like use our gift of improvising. We didn't have any songs, so we just start making things up in front of the crowd just to keep it going because we needed to keep playing. And that's what made us actually get better as a band and kind of like go these places in front of people where it's like the pressure's on. So we got really good really fast. But it was kind of frightening at the beginning. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Well, I mean, it's quite the history, and I was in bands during the '90s, and I know about that electric. There's a lot of bands that kind of hit and had a few, successful, albums or tours. But man, you guys had 4 albums that you put out. You toured all around the country. Obviously, got a lot of airplay. I Got a Girl is a single that many people may have seen on MTV or even on Beavis and Butthead. And so
Yeah.
I was curious about that. What was that like when you guys saw that? Was that like a moment like, wow, we made it in a different way that, what was it like to see it
So
rise
weird
to that?
it's so weird when you're in it. You don't really it's just kind of another thing that's happening. Like when things are happening, that's like, oh, that's another thing. At first when they said zip, it goes, zip it up. Beavis said that or something, or the other one said it. I don't know if it was Butthead, but they go, zip it up when they unzip the thing on the thing. And I took it as a diss. I was like, God, that's mean. Why the fuck they do that? So I wasn't like excited about it. And it wasn't until years later that I really appreciated it as part of pop culture that Tripping Daisy was on there. It was a big deal. But at the time, it was just another thing because we had so much going on. The band was, before we signed to Island Records, there was a massive bidding war for Tripping Daisy. We had every major label in the country trying to sign this band. And that was a thing in itself. We had one label, MCA, um, we told them we were Cowboys fans, and they flew us to Pasadena to the Super Bowl when the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl. So we went to the Super Bowl with the CEO of MCA and the president of MCA, the president of A&R, and then our A&R guy. We're sitting in the 50-yard line, 5 rows up from the bottom, and watching the Dallas Cowboys and play the Buffalo. And Michael Jackson was the halftime show. But yeah,
Wow.
things like that happening with us. And so it was a crazy, crazy time in the beginning of Tripping Daisy. It was just kind of, it was just, I don't know, there was something about that band that was really magical and people picked up on it. And to be in the band and been a part of it, it was just, you're kind of in awe, you're kind of, but I knew Tripping Daisy was special. I just knew it because I felt it with the guys in the band. I felt it when I connected with Wes. I knew it was special. But you just don't ever know how the public's going to take to it. And, they found it special too. So it was kind of great.
Well, you kind of had this meteoric rise, and I was kind of curious if you kind of, go back in time there, what was that level of fame like for you in the sense where is it just kind of exciting, embracing, or is there a point? Because I know with you deal with all these record companies, things become corporate. There's all these different things you have to do, and you're traveling. There's all sorts of promos, and it's but the dawn before the internet age, so it was kind of a
Yeah.
different animal. What was that like for you as that was kind of as you guys were progressing up those charts and the ladders of success?
It was, you, like I said earlier, just kind of going along with it in the beginning because you don't know any different. When I first started to really understand that this is commerce, man, they're trying to sell records, um, is when all the focus was going on with I Got a Girl. That's when I first kind of like, wait a minute, wait, why are we there's other songs on this record. Why are we just focusing on that one particular record? Well, because it was the quote hit. And even though I thought other songs were a hit and eventually were on that record, but all the eggs in the basket were in I Got a Girl. And so that's when I first kind of like started to pick up on it. And it was like decisions that I would have made. Um, weren't being made. They was being made on, another level of like promoting and pushing this song. And I kind of battled with those guys quite a bit in that because I didn't understand it. I'd want to do things a lot differently, a little bit more organic and spread this out and not just hit like this is the only song we've got. And it's kind of like they were just trying to cash in on one song. That was what I was feeling. And that was kind of a drag, but it's on their in fairness to them, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. They're trying to market the song that's going to be able to sell records. They've got to get their money back, and I get all that. I just think there at the time I thought it could have been done a lot way across the board and get more longevity for the band and not really burn people out on one song. There's a real art to being able to like make that transition from your hit single to the next one and kind of keep it going rather than just burning people out on that one kind of quirky song. It's a great song, but it's kind of quirky and it could, burn some people out, which ultimately would, it's negative on the band. So it was tough. I had a lot of um, negative times with those guys. But it's like then the regime changed and we Chris Blackwell, who was the owner of Island Records back then, he actually came down because Rose and James Dowdle and Rose Noon, to try to find a band. Well, they found us. We were the first band, and they stumbled on us. And it was like, I loved Island Records because of Chris Blackwell. I knew all about Island Records, and Chris Blackwell had built that label from the trunk of his car. And it was like, I love that story of people like grinding it out and kind of being an entrepreneur. And he was the biggest major label within all the major labels that started as an independent him, personally, and he's
Yeah.
still running it. The rest of them are kind of, corporations, and not that he wasn't, but he was running it. And so he even came down here and to see the band and sign off on it because James and Rose said, we're not doing this unless you see this band. And because they wanted him to be invested in it. And he came down and he was. And we ultimately had creative control. We negotiated that with Island Records, but I didn't really exercise it until the next record with them, which was Jesus Hits Like the Atom Bomb. And that unfortunately, we got that record, and 2 weeks after it was released, we got dropped because while we were making that record, Chris Blackwell calls me in the studio and tells me, Tim, I've decided to sell Island to this company. And I'm like, what? Like, dude, we're making this record. And he goes, I wanted to talk. He goes, I just got off the phone with Bono. He goes, but I wanted to call you and let you know personally so you wouldn't hear it from somebody else. And I'm like, wow. I mean, he goes, but everything's going to be okay. They're fully aware of you. Da 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 da. You don't have anything to worry about. I'm like, okay. So I didn't have anybody watching over us during the making of Atom Bomb. And so we're in upstate New York at Dreamland Studios in Woodstock, making this record, having this amazing experience with Eric Drew Feldman. And but no one was there watching over us. Unlike Firecracker, when we had everybody up in our shit and we had to do everything was like, this, we got to practice, we got to really work this song, which was I Got a Girl. Got to make sure everything's great. It's like they're always on your ass to make sure the hits are there. Well, since there was so much stuff going on at Island, they're like, let them just make their record. No one's watching. So we made this beautiful record and it made it exactly the way we wanted it. It was such an amazing experience of like letting the kids play, let them record, let them do whatever they want, and no one's watching over you, and it's paid for. And it was like you couldn't have asked for a better experience. And then when we released it 2 weeks later, we're dropped, and we're like, this is like the best thing we've ever done. And we got dropped. So that was really debilitating. That was my and that's when I really like, I'm not down with these major labels, And so it was like every time I went into any sort of deal with anybody, in a major label. I was always skeptical. I knew what I was up for. It was a trip, you know. And we'll talk about Spree in a minute, but yeah, that band's been in on 8 different labels. It's just kind of, now I haven't been on a label. I'm on Good Records label for quite some time now. But anyway, so yeah, I kind of ran the gamut. I came an adult. I kind of learned about a lot about business with Tripping Daisy, and I learned the ins and outs of labels. And I had the best experiences with labels and the worst experiences with labels, and the best experience was with the higher ups, and the worst experiences with the higher ups. And so art and commerce, man, it's a thin line, it's a tightrope, and you got to learn you have to walk on it,
Certainly. Well, that brings you to the idea of the final album you guys had was self-titled, and I believe that I saw, that was Good Records as well. Was this an independent thing? Was there other groups that were a part of that? And what did that look like when y'all were recording? And if you can kind of walk us through, maybe what happened and where the band hit pause for a little while.
Yeah. So we were Tripping Daisy. I mean, we were a kind of a road dog band. Once we started touring, we stayed on the road pretty much, probably 10 months out of the year. This band would tour in a van for years, and it's just like pounding it, pounding it, and pounding it. And I think at the end of Firecracker, when we were just completely done, we were so spent because we toured our ass off on Bill, and then now we're doing, Firecracker. We toured really heavily on that record, and we needed a break really bad. Right when we were about ready to take a break, like we were so burnt out, we get a call to go on tour with Def Leppard. And so now we're like, you know, we're out for 3 months with those guys, and we were already so spent, and which was an amazing tour in itself. Became really good friends with those guys to this day. I'm still friends with those guys. It was a great experience, but man, it was rough because we were so burnt out. But we got back, and we decided, we took a little time off, and we did a small tour with Atom Bomb just to kind of do it, but we really didn't tour that record. Came back and said, it's time to make a record. And it was uh, same guys, me, Mark, Ben Curtis, Wes, and Phil Carnatz, and we made the self-titled record, which was interesting. It was kind of another deal, another experience where we had, we did it on our own because we did it with Good Records, and then another label called Sugar Fix that was out of California. And but again, after experiencing the kind of full creative control that we had on Atom Bomb, we did the same thing with the self-titled record. And you can kind of hear the beginning stages of the Polyphonic Spree. And that's kind of what started to happen. But we were in the middle of making that record, and Wes passed away. And that was first time I really had anybody that close to me pass. And it just completely gutted me. I was like, it was a sad time. I had a really good connection with him, spiritually, musically. He was a dear friend, and it was rough. And I just didn't think I could continue doing Tripping Daisy without him. So I just decided that I was done with that band, which was really, really difficult. But that's kind of what happened. But Wes's dad came in, Don Bergeron, and finished the one of the songs, which was Soothing Jubilee. He's the one playing the electric piano on that particular track. And we finished the record, and that was it. And that was in the end of 1999. And yeah, that was the end of Tripping Daisy.
Well, you kind of picked up there with some of the same fellas and a bunch of other people. I mean, I think there's like 28 people at the time I saw you on stage with Polyphonic Spree. And I mean, you guys just did another album last year, which we'll jump into in a minute there. But I wanted to talk about like that transition of then. I mean, you're an artist. You want to go out there and play. Was there any kind of difficulty and roadblocks in getting back out there with Polyphonic Spree, or was that something that was like healing for you to go ahead and go through those motions on stage with your friends and family and kind of moving forward in that way? And I was just kind of
Well,
curious what that was like for you.
I mean, when it first happened, when Wes passed, I was completely uh debilitated. I couldn't even think about being in a band. I mean, I couldn't think about doing Tripping Daisy. I couldn't think about playing music. I went through a rough time. It was weird timing because we also had the birth of our son, Oscar, in 2000. So it's like I'd lost Wes, but then I had this brand new baby boy. And it was such a weird time. I think Oscar saved me in a lot of ways, me and Julie, from that, because that was devastating what happened with Wes.
Mhm.
Um, but I honestly, I was like, I thought I was done making music. And one day I picked up the guitar because I hadn't been playing anything, and I just picked it up, and I think I wrote, um, it might have been Light and Day. I'm not sure. It might have been the first song I wrote. I can't remember. Julie would know. I can't remember. But um, and then I kind of wrote another song, and I didn't think anything about it. But then it's like as I wrote another one, I was starting to hear other instruments other than just the guitar, bass, and drums. It's like then I started to think, man, if I do make music again, I mean, I'm gonna do like what I thought about in Tripping Daisy. I thought about Polyphonic Spree back in Tripping Daisy when we were recording. Like, I wish I had strings here. I wish I had a horn section instead of me just singing. I wish I had about 10 people singing. These were arrangement ideas that I had in Tripping Daisy, but we didn't have that stuff. And that's why a lot of the sounds on Tripping Daisy are kind of experimental, because it's almost like we're trying to create more than what our instruments would allow, trying to reach different sounds and stuff. So that's why you kind of hear the birth of it in Tripping Days. The sound was changing. You can hear it. There's just the alignment with the sun that's happening, a kind of a birthing that's getting ready to happen, unbeknownst to me. But it kind of rekindled itself when I started to write for the first time, and my songs started to change. Songwriting started to change and became a bit more adventurous and more of a journey. And so I thought when I was writing these songs that I didn't know even were for Polyphonic Spree, I just started to think of them, wow, I wish I had this, and why don't I try to find this? And so Chris Penn, my dear friend, who recently passed away, he was our partner on Good Records, the record store. We opened a record store in 2000. And he knew that I was writing these songs. And, you know, I guess about 4 months earlier, we had gone out on a road trip with Granddaddy, the band. This was in 99. No, I'm not. Yeah, or maybe early 2000. And went out on tour with those guys on the West Coast just to follow them around. The Beachwood Sparks was opening up, and we became friends with those guys. And then Chris had them come down and play the Gypsy Tea Room. And he goes, "You got 2 weeks to put a band together. You guys are going to open up for Granddaddy." And I'm like, "What?" So I had 2 weeks to put together a band, the Polyphonic Spree, for a show. And immediately just kind of started calling friends and family and find out who played any symphonic instruments. I didn't know anything about that world. I mean, I literally went to the mall and saw a guy playing cello in the mall at North Park Mall. And I said, "Man, I'm starting this band. I really need, some symphonic instruments. And I love the way you're playing right now. Would you like to, come jam with me and see if we can do something?" And he played at the Dallas Symphony. It was this long hair. He looked like freaking like a J.S. Bach is like a big composer or something. He was older than me. And his wife played violin for the same company. And he said, yeah. And so I had him, I had her, and then I started some other people. I put the word out. People kind of started contacting me, knew that I was, looking for folks. And one guy, I had so many failed attempts with people because um, it was like I write everything out of improvisation, like I was telling you about Tripping Daisy. So I don't like write music and then have people read it. So most of these people in symphonic world, um, they're all, classically trained theory. And so they read music. And I thought that everybody could do what I did, which was improvise. And that's when I found out that not everybody does that. So I'd kind of like say, just play something and I'm going to sing. And they go, what do you mean play something? I go, I don't know, just play anything, a melody of something you just make up, and I'll just kind of go along with it. And they didn't know. And I said, well, I'm going to play something on my guitar, and then I just want you to play along with me. And they go, well, do you know what chords? And I go, no, we're not going to talk about that. You just play. And I'll play and I'll just hear how you respond. And they couldn't do it unless they had the music telling them what was happening. Then they couldn't do it. So it's like these had these little failed attempts within those 2 weeks. And then you found people that I'd play with that didn't even know they could do it. They just tried it and they discovered that out about it themselves in front of me for the first time, and they were equally excited. So then, that kind of happened, and then it was like, wow, okay. So then I knew the two worlds I'm dealing with, and I've collected enough people to be able to do that show, and it was a trip. It was Granddaddy, Bright Eyes, and the Polyphonic Spree was our first show.
The heck of a nice first show. I mean, I remember seeing you guys, I think it was your first, um, it's the holiday extravaganza. I think you guys played at Lakefront. I think it
Uh,
was at Lakefront Theater, maybe, or I'm trying to remember. It was in that
Lakewood,
Dallas Fort Worth. Yeah, okay. I just remembered it was an amazing show.
yeah, and we still doing that today.
Yeah, you'd like 24th
Yeah,
or 25th or something.
yeah, it's crazy.
Well, this last year, I kind of want to jump forward to that. Is talking about what the experience was for Salvage Enterprise and your as far as the planetarium experience there too. And then I want to jump back to kind of what's happening with the Tripping Daisy tour. But I definitely want to talk about that a little bit and what that's like for fans and how you went about approaching this. The visualization and the album full on concept, album listening, the things that you were trying to get into people's heads and ears and eyes. And if you wouldn't mind, we can chat about that for a minute and kind of move on from there.
So Salvage Enterprise was a record that there I was faced at another point in my life where I thought I was done and couldn't write any more songs. I went through a major drought where I just couldn't write. I just wasn't feeling inspired. I was kind of depressed and just not in the headspace of anything creative whatsoever. It was rough. But Salvage Enterprise was born in the pandemic, where I kind of forced myself to learn a software called oh gosh, what's it called?
Logic.
Logic.
Mhm.
And I had never recorded my own stuff. I'd done it with my phone and things, but never like seriously, it's just not my bag to be an engineer. And but I was forced to do it. I've learned how to do it through just fumbling my way through it and try to like record. I would play something. Well, when I was playing something, it kind of like, you know, wow, it's just me and a guitar, and I'm recording, and I'm learning how to record, and at the same time I'm playing, and it would provoke a feeling, and then I'd start singing and I'd write a song, and it was like, and the first song was Give Me Everything. And it was it was like a revelation. It's like, oh my God, I'm not, and my back, I can write again. It was freaking me out. I was like so inspired, and it kept, of provoking other things. And so I wrote Open the Shores, and all these were by myself, and I recorded them. And those are what you're hearing on the record is actually my recording of me. There's 3 songs recorded that I recorded here, and the rest I did with Casey at Valve Studios. But yeah, so I had this very personal record that was different from anything we'd ever put out, which, that's not saying much because every record's kind of different. But this was more like the beginning stages in a lot of ways, but something different, way more personal record for me than I've ever done before. And the approach was extremely different, and also the hardest record I've ever made, but nevertheless. But when it was finished, I knew I wanted people to hear this as an album as a whole. And so I struggled with it. The record was done for a year, and I just couldn't find in my heart to like release it because of the times we live in. People don't listen to albums anymore. It's all about, the jukebox in your pocket, and you go from song to song. And sometimes they don't even finish songs anymore. They just switch to another song. It's just a real drag as an artist, especially when you write a body of work that you want people to take this journey. So I decided, in order for people to hear this, that I was just going to go travel around with the sound system and, basically have a captive audience where they just have to sit there in the middle of this circle that I built with speakers and under the stars and listen to the album. That was my way of like doing it. So I had a certain amount of money to spend. I rented a Sprinter van, and I had 12 speaker sound system on tripods and 2 generators. And I just head out on the road, went up and down. I started in Joshua Tree. I did 2 nights in Joshua Tree, and then head to Ojai. And then I just went up and down the West Coast doing pop-up listening experiences. And I'd tell people, I'm going to be at this location on social media at this time. And then if you show up, it's free. And I had these moving blankets, and people would lay down in the circle, and I'd play the record from start to finish. And that's how I did it. That was how I was going to get people to hear it. So I did that until I ran out of money. And then I came back and I said, all right, I guess it's time to go ahead and put this out there. And so at the same time, I was talking to my friend Scott Berman, who did the visuals for Tripping Daisy back in the day. And I said, he and I had been talking. He was a big fan of this record. I'd shared it with him early on through voice memos. And he's like, Tim, this is some of the best stuff you've done. And he was just majorly behind it. And he and I had talked about doing a planetarium experience back in the day with Tripping Daisy. Just never happened. And then we started talking about, making an immersive film with this particular record. And so that's where the birth of Resolution came about. And we got some funding from a friend, and started to go down that road, something we didn't know anything about. It's kind of like a polyphonic spree, not knowing anything about the symphonic world and jumping in. We did the same thing about making a film for a dome, which is completely different than making a film for flat screens. You have to use a different camera. The technology is not even there at the time. So there was a lot of like trial and error that we had to go through, but we found some people, and Scott pretty much took that whole thing on and took off and met some animators and went to his first choice, Anthony Shepard, of an animator that he always loved and even used his work, in past shows that we had done for Spree. And kind of jumped in, and we did it through, almost 2 years of making that film. But we've made this film. It's an immersive experience that recently just won South by Southwest, the audience award there. And we are now kind of being requested to go to London and do the film there. It's going to Venice Film Festival. It's kind of taken off in a world of its own, but it's basically a film that takes you on a journey of that album. It reimagines the way to listen to an album, and you're fully immersed in these visuals from 9 different animators from all over the world that have contributed their work per track. So you're listening to every song, and every song has a different animator. and it's from 2D animation to 3D animation. And it's pretty incredible. And so right now we're at the Omni Theater, which is the best theater in the country. It's the largest hemisphere LED 8K theater in the country. The only thing bigger than that is the Sphere in Las Vegas. So we got picked up there, and it's there for the next year, and it's playing in Denton at the planetarium there. And it's going to start playing in different planetariums kind of all over the country and eventually abroad.
It I cannot wait to check it out. We're actually going to be heading up there and hopefully finding a time to check it out, the Omni there in Dallas. And I've heard wonderful things. Congratulations on the award there, and the continued success with that. Jumping into now the idea of what's, in front of us here. It's about to embark upon the first nationwide tour with Tripping Daisy in quite a while. I mean, in 2017, I know you played a handful of gigs, kind of did some regional stuff, and there's been some shows that have happened, New Year's gigs and some things. But when did you guys decide to go ahead and take this by storm? I mean, obviously, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of I Am an Elastic Firecracker. I know you guys are going to be playing this in its entirety as well as a bunch of other hits. And I was kind of curious, when did this start and how did that decision come about with the guys to, hey, let's go ahead and do this and let's hit the big tour this time?
So Chris had Chris Penn had people get together to play some Alice Cooper songs for a film that he made when he got the original Alice Cooper band to come play Good Records live from the AstroTurf. Um, he was doing a night of Alice Cooper songs and had different bands, and he had Tripping Daisy play because we happened to be in town. And so we did that, and then the next day, since we were all there, we decided to play a surprise show at the Kessler. Well, it was great. Had a really fun time, and we actually did, for the first time ever since we've reconnected, did kind of some improvising like what I used to do back in the day. And it just felt so good to me. It was like, wow, this band, we could do this. I had this like, it was reinvigorated for me to like get back to it because I so much love that feeling of that spontaneity and being able to like just being on the spot and go there. And we did it that night. And so I left her that night. I told Chris, I go, man, I'm like charged. I'm like, I could go do this again. I want to play. I love that feeling. It was awesome. I want to get back at it. So I knew that we were going to eventually do it. And Chris and I talked about it, and we the time came, we found a booking agent and put it out there. And Chris actually kind of put the dates out there, and we booked the tour. It was like 2.5 months, and Chris had his fall um, where it put him in the hospital. It was debilitating. And but the tour was booked. It was for 2.5 months. And I told Chris, I was like, dude, I can't do this tour with you like this. I don't know what's going on yet. And he's like, you got to do the tour. And I said, well, I'll do half of it. So I committed to a month of it. So we had to cancel the back half, a month and a half of it. And so I committed this first month. And so we're doing it, and unfortunately, Chris passes, and now I'm all alone, and I've got this tour that he kind of like spearheaded with me. And so I'm trying to find the way of making this thing work. And so it's weird. I did all this stuff when I was in my 20s, but now I'm like back at it again. It seems like the world's changed, and I'm trying to put this tour on, and I'm dropping the ball left and right, but it's booked, it's happening, it's out there, and people are buying tickets, and that's all I know. And the band's rehearsing, and we'll be ready for it. But it's a challenge for me. I miss my friend terribly, and so rough dealing with that. But he insisted that we go, and I'm gonna do it, and he'll be out there, and it'll be cool. And it's going to be bittersweet because he was going on tour with us. And but I'm just so, I don't know, I'm thankful that we're doing it. And I'm also thankful for Chris, but it's been really rough on me. So it's kind of it's been a kind of a nice distraction working on this tripping daisy because it kind of keeps my mind, geared on that.
Sure. Oh, I understand, and I'm sorry for the loss, and for his family. They've been in my prayers, and I know that there's a lot of people who have kind of rallied around to support his family and do whatever they can. And I know that there's a GoFundMe out there, and I'll throw the QR code here for all viewers and listeners. I'll have in the show notes below, so you guys can go and kind of contribute and help out there, and give whatever you can for his family.
Yeah, please do. They're amazing. His boys are special to me. And yeah, please, if you feel so inclined to, yeah, donate a little something. If the QR code's there, I really appreciate that.
Well, and I know it with Good Records that you guys co-founded, you got the record store there. And I know you guys have a lot of different releases coming up. If you want to kind of talk about, I know there's some pre-orders, some Tripping Daisy LPs, as well as there's, the Bill, and I know the Polyphonic Spree has one that just kind of came out, some limited edition stuff. What are some of the things that are coming, as far as those to the table soon, and when should people be ready for those to be released?
So we're doing pre-sale of I'm an Firecracker, and then another pre-sale of Jesus Hits Like the Atom Bomb. We sold out of Atom Bomb on last time, so now we're doing another order of Atom Bomb for anybody that didn't get to get, and it comes with all the same things that the first one came with. All of our Good Records releases have always been pretty amazing. If you've ever bought a vinyl release from Good Records, we go all out. You get things that no one else is going to get because we have all this personal artifact that we've had through the years that we accompany him with. And Chris, as being a music fan, would make records and releases in a way that he would like to get. If he could get a record from one of his favorite bands, how he would like to have it. And so that's kind of how we've gone with it. Our Good Records releases are pretty amazing. It's really in depth. You usually get a poster or slip disc cover in there. You get stickers, you get photos that have never been seen before. You get a lot of artwork and a lot of things that make it unique and all on its own that you won't get anywhere else. And it's kind of a standard that he started because he's such a fan of music that all of our records kind of have that. So really looking forward to, if you get a chance to get one, get it, because there's not that many that come out. But so yeah, you have Firecracker that's available right now, and it's a pre-sale. It's being manufactured right now, and then Atom Bomb, Jesus, it's like the Atom Bomb as well. But it's our first time we've put out I'm an Elastic Firecracker under Good Records.
Oh, right on. Well, I'll have the links for everything there below. I thank you so much for joining me today, and for kind of walking us back through some of the history and some of the tough spots. I appreciate being open and honest and vulnerable about that. And it kind of leads me to my final question. I ask a lot of the people who come on, and that's one about legacy. And I was kind of curious of what your thoughts are. Is that something that you think about often? And the idea of how you hope to be remembered in your body of work personally, and what it is that you'd like to leave your stamp on this world, and just some of your thoughts about that.
Well, I hadn't really thought about that until recently. When you lose someone close to you, you think about, mortality can't help but like leak in there. And I've never, I, you know, I got an award probably 6 months ago, kind of a lifetime achievement award that I couldn't even believe I got, but it was bizarre. And I thought, I never really thought about what I've done. I'm always thinking of it forward. I never go backwards. It's always forward. And so I just always, I'm always like on to the next thing and on to the next thing, that I don't ever think about what's in my wake or what's happened until it's brought up to me. And then I think, wow, I've kind of done a lot. So I don't know. I look at the body of work, and I look at the core. I look at overall the intentions of what have that I've been a part of trying to put out there. And um it's always been this hopeful kind of overcoming mission that has tended to resonate with me, because I've found the things that I sing about are basically to convince me. Those times I was telling you I'm improvising and whatever comes to my mind, and usually it's all about overcoming and reaching, and you can get there, and this thing of seeing my way through, and that's usually what's on my mind. So I think a lot of my music, I know it does, I've been told, helps a lot of people, and I never even thought about that because it was always for me. And so I kind of hope that the legacy is that, my output has helped people overcome a lot of things because it's helped me overcome a lot of things. My music has saved me personally. And I hope that for other people, I hope that they get that. And also the intention of taking people on a journey and finding an escape and musically like going to these places that they wouldn't normally go to and having space in their life to take something like that on. Know that the intention is for them and to take these people on a journey. And hopefully we've done that. We've given them a good show, and I have given them some things they can lean on from time to time when we need it, like music and the message and knowing that we can get over it. Like I'm gonna make it through this with Chris. It's the hardest thing I've ever gone through in my life. I can't lie. This is the topper. It's but I know I'm gonna get through it. I will get through it. And but I don't know. I guess that, yeah, my legacy is that as humans, we want to be happy and we want to get through it. We want to be good. We want to make it, and we can and we will. You just have to remember it. So I guess that's my legacy.
Well said, Tim. Thank you again for sharing that and for sharing all of your music and your art. I will have all the notes below where people can go ahead and, get in, get a ticket for the upcoming Tripping Daisy tour. It's starting very soon next month, and it's going to be going around the country. I know you got like 22 dates or so, and can't wait to check that out. And thanks again for joining. And as far as if folks want to follow your journey along the way, socials, what's the best way for them to go ahead and kind of follow along with this and, maybe your shows that are coming up?
You can go to trippingdaisy.com. That'll show you where we're playing. You can even buy tickets to particular shows of different cities. I'll send you something that you can post, maybe put up, shows the dates. But um, we'll do more legs of it. Just this leg just goes up the Midwest to makes its way up to Montreal, Toronto, and then back down the east side. But we'll be coming back out there and hitting places that we didn't hit this time in the future. But trippingdaisy.com will kind of give you everything you want to know. And then the polyphonicsfree.com will get you where you want to go if you're interested in that as well. And then also Resolution Films. You can check that as well on Instagram to find out where Resolution's playing.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait. Thank you again so much for joining me today, and appreciate all that you're doing, man.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you having me. Sorry I get long-winded, man. I kind of get to talking about it and just kind of rolls. So appreciate you hanging in there.
I think everyone's going to thoroughly enjoy it, man. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Take care, bud.
Take care.